start. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you everyone for your patience, support. Thank you. I welcome you all on behalf of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan National Coordinating Institutes, IIT Delhi. Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is Ministry of Education flagship program. Unnat Bharat Abhiyan is inspired by the vision of transformational change in rural development process by leveraging knowledge institutions to help build the architecture of an inclusive India. This webinar series on understanding various modes of tribal development and protecting their indigenous culture from external influence. So today we have two special guests from Kerala, and this webinar session will be moderated by IIT Palakkad. So IIT Palakkad has nominated a special guest to moderate this session. I would like to introduce him. The moderator, who has very vast experience, education, and knowledge, I would like to introduce him. He has completed his MSc and PhD in zoology from University of Calicut, Kerala. He has also completed his MSc in Museum Studies from University of Leicester, United Kingdom. He has more than 31 years of experience in Government of India, including two ministries, Ministries of Environment and Forest and Climate Change and Ministry of Culture. I would like to request today's moderator, sir, kindly continue the sessions. Over to you, please, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pandey, for introducing. I think my audio is okay for you. I'm able to. You are able to hear.
Sir, please.
Okay. Now today's topic, the theme is understanding various methods of tribal development, protecting their indigenous culture from external influences. And I understand that based on the speaker's background, this is based on the Kerala context. We have got two speakers who belong to the tribal district of Kerala. Wayanad is called as the maximum number of tribal people in Kerala. And both of them are academicians working in different fields related to tribal development, and they belong to Wayanad. The first speaker is Dr. Nidish, who is at present a faculty in the Department of Commerce, Pondicherry University. He has got a PhD basically in commerce, but he has got post-graduation in 3 different subjects: commerce, management, and economics. So that's a good combination to understand the different aspects of it. And he has done extensive work on different aspects of economic oriented, you can say the taxation, economic zones, poverty alleviations, and rural development. Some of the stakeholders or case studies are from the women folk and tribal people of Kerala. So he's basically concentrating on the different aspects of economic and poverty alleviation aspects of the tribal development work. Tribal, we can say, tribal finance, tribal labor, and all that type of things. He has already completed, he has already guided a few PhD students, and he has been associated with border studies of different departments of commerce, management, and economics, etc. Now, I will request Dr. Nidish KB from the Pondicherry University to speak on a model for tribal development in Kerala. Dr. Nidish, please.
Thank you, Dr. Venugopal sir. Learned professors and academicians, Let me express my sincere gratitude to Professor Virendra Kebiche, National Coordinator, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, IIT, Delhi, and his team to conduct one of the relevant topic webinar, namely tribal development. And my sincere gratitude to IIT Palakkad for hosting these programs. And today, my topic of presentation is Model for Tribal Development with respect to Kerala states. And this today discussion, I am emphasizing two important aspects, namely problem of tribes in Kerala, and second, I giving some suggestion for improvement of tribes in Kerala. So these are the two important area today I'm discussing. We all know tribes have a distant culture and tribes are isolated. They may be staying in forest area or hill stations, or they may be staying in islands. So they are isolated from mainland. So this isolation lead the innocence behavior. They they are having innocent behavior. Because of that innocent behavior, there is a high chances are there to have exploitation, especially the middleman. We all know in India, the tribal population with respect to total population percentage is 8.61 as per 2011 census. So when come to Kerala, that may hardly reach 2%. And as per Kerala Public Service Commission, there are 36 communities as recognized as scheduled tribe. And we all aware that central government, state government, more specifically, Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Government of India, introduced various schemes for the development of tribes in India. So when we analyze those schemes, what I was observed, those schemes are mainly focused for the education, pre-metric scholarship, post-metric scholarship, then for research within India as well as outside India, for the improvement of housing facilities, for improvement of the malnutrition and health, for the improvement of infrastructure facilities in and around tribal hamlets. So these are the intentions for the introductions of so-called schemes. Even concerned persons, or we can say as a concerned authorities, introducing various schemes for the upliftment of tribes, they are not free from various obstacles or problems. And let us take some time to discuss what are the serious issues of tribes in India, more specifically Kerala states. From my observation, I was list out 21 main obstacles or problems of tribes in Kerala states. One is called as, first and foremost, we can say, lack of formal educations. We all aware that today is an emerging or competitive world. To face competition, human being required formal educations, but that is lagging as far as tribal concern when comparing with the non-tribes. So as per the official records, literacy rates of tribes in Kerala, 56%, but when come to the general category, that may more than 95%. And for your information, less than 2% of tribes in the state of Kerala has completed their master degrees. Okay, so that is one of the important issues. Because of lack of formal education, they are exploited by different stakeholders. Then second important issue we can say, unemployment in formal or organized sectors. Because of lack of formal education, most of the tribes are working in unorganized or informal sectors. And educated tribes are waiting to get government job, but unfortunately, we won't found a fair reservation system in aided institutions. In Kerala, a number of institutions under the control of minorities big group, or we can say as a majorities group. The name of aided colleges, aided schools, and aided institutions. But we hardly to found any of the workers come under scheduled tribes employing in that organizations. We proudly say in India, Kerala is number one state in terms of literacy and human index, and the communist ruling states. Even that the government has not taken any effort for implementing reservation in aided institutions, and at the same time they hesitate to give appointment through Kerala Public Service Commissions. So that is badly affected to the weaker sections, especially scheduled tribes. And I was clearly mentioned here, employees working in informal sectors or unorganized sectors, they are not getting reasonable monetary benefit. It may be the form of daily wages or maybe weekly wages. But most of the employers they're happy to give consideration than cash. Mainly we can say, or more specifically we can say, a person's working in unorganized sectors, their salary portions may given by the employer in terms of alcoholic liquor or related aspects. That's one of the notable point. And third, issues or problems of tribes in Kerala, they're facing human trafficking. That we can be especially found when a workers employing outside Kerala, especially in ginger field, we can say in Karnataka Kodak districts, that employer, or we can say as the farmers, or farmers who's cultivating ginger, they are not fulfilling the various statutory requirements before taking these workers from, especially from Wayanad district to Karnataka. So we can say here there are human traffic is another issue in tribal workers. And at the same time, we can see there are nutrition issues and health issues. Especially the primitive tribes in Wayanad district as well as Palakkad districts, namely Attapadi, there are n number of cases has reported the problem of nutrition. But when we closely observe the social infrastructure, especially hospitals, that we won't fail to found near tribal hamlets. So they has to move minimum 10 or 12 kilometers to reach the hospital. So meantime, that tribes will get severe conditions. So that we can see as the another issues. The next is called as exploitations. So the middlemen as exploiting resources, they're exploiting the health as well as sexual exploitations. Now we can understand tribal don't have any land to construct their housing facilities. Tribal don't have any land to do their agriculture activities. And tribal don't have enough land to do their allied activities. It's by because of resource exploitation by the non-tribe. They are exploiting the health by way of providing alcohol instead of wages. Most of the employers are ready or like to give alcohol, especially the weaker section of the tribal group. Ultimately, their health gets spoiled. I was rightly pointed out here, tribes are the innocent, and because of that innocent behavior was exploited by non-tribe as well as the tribe people too. a tribal woman. So we can find there are sexual exploitations in the tribal hamlets. Next issues, there are lack of housing facilities. In Muttil Panchayat, Wayanad district, more than 10 families are staying in their huts. That was recently reported. We are proudly saying the government has introduced various schemes for improving the housing facilities of tribes in the state as well as in the country, but they are not benefited because they don't have the land. Even they're staying or settled in a tribal hamlets, when authorities asking the documents or records of your land for the construction of housing facilities, but they fail to provide that one because they don't have the official records. It's because of they are lacking formal educations. And seventh issue, I was observed heavy consumption of alcohol with empty stomach. Previously or in olden age, tribes or Adivasi had the habit of taking alcohol in a rare occasion, especially any festivals or functions happen means they will be providing or they will be taking. But nowadays, what we understood or what we observed, before taking a cup of tea, they are taking alcoholic items with empty stomach. That is leading health issues. That was because of the external influence. The next one, land alienations. Tribals are mainly classified into three major groups. The first category we can say that marginal farmers. Second category is bonded laborers. And third category, they are the forest dwellers. These are the three categories. In first category, tribes having a marginal land, now their land got eliminated because of the external affairs or external influences. The next pathetic condition we can found in tribal hamlet is unwed mothers. Unwed mothers. The responsible persons will be the external as well as tribal themselves, both as equally responsible to get unwed mothers situation in our tribal hamlets. The next important curses or issues of tribes we can say, they are difficulty to market their product, and they don't have enough facilities for processing their products. I was rightly pointed out, tribal hamlets are isolated from mainland, and there are lack of infrastructure for transport of products from that place to mainland. And for keeping the particular products for a long period, they don't have the processing centers that will be exploited or badly affected their economic conditions. That's another important issues. The next important and hot discussion area, we can say, tribal funds are diverted and diverting to. Recently, Kerala High Court stated that tribal fund should not be diverted. But unfortunately, the administrators and the government, administrators with the support of government, the tribal funds are diverting to the various field. And at the same time, I was observed more funds gets lapped. You know, these are the things happening in the state of Kerala. If people are proudly saying 100% literacy states and the small states, those states can be very easily or convenient where they can be managed or send funds for the tribal development. But universal fact, they hesitate to spend fund for the well-wishers. Sorry, they hesitate to send fund to the tribal development. The next important issue, what I was observed here, there is a lack of coordination between various authorities, namely tribal development department, forest department, police department, and social ministry of social justice. You know, when there is heavy rain happened in my place, that area got isolated because we don't have any bridge. So that one we are passing from NH, Calicut, Mysore. From there to my home around 1 kilometer. To reach my home, I should pass one river. But that river is moving in the forest. Because of that, the forest department is not giving permission to construct a bridge there. And because of the forest department is not supported, there is no infrastructures in particular places. And suppose any cases has reported, police is not turned there because they used to say that is come under the area of a forest department. And if you report these issues to the tribal department, they used to say the forest department is not giving approval or consent for the development activities. And we know one of the pathetic condition happened in Kerala state. One of our brother, namely Madhu, got murdered. And still now, the authority has not given any social justice to his family and the entire communities. This happens by because of there is no cordial relationship exists between the various judiciaries and the other departments. And next important and notable points, the number of tribal populations now declined or reducing. So because of the lifespan got reduced, because of the intercaste marriage, and because of that production capacity got reduced. Previously our grandparents may produced more than 10 children. Our parents said that 6 to 7, but now the maximum 3. So because of that reason, the number of tribes got reduced in the state of Kerala. And the another important elements, the beneficiary are not eligible persons. So when we observed who are holding the good positions, or we can say as the government positions, the most of the beneficiaries we can found, they are directly or indirectly, they are not in tribal communities. Either their parents may tribe, I mean either their father or mother may tribe. So what I'm saying here, we can find the beneficiaries of tribal funds or beneficiaries of employee mainly from intercaste members or intercaste children. And at the same time, when we observed the descriptions or definition of tribes, what we understood, the tribe should be marry same caste. But what I was seeing in most of the cases, the government job was given to the children of non-tribe. I can say they are non-tribe by because their mother or father may come under tribal communities. And we know we have our own traditions. That traditions get diluted or violated when that tribes has converted into other religions. But one of the notable point, one who claim the tribal benefits, we can found most of the people are come under the converted people. So that would be the skills of the real tribes communities. And next important points here, we are losing the traditional knowledge, mainly traditional medicines. I was point out here, tribes may lack with formal education, but they are blessed with traditional knowledge. But now the traditional knowledge, especially that medicines, that is getting lost or getting reduced because of the external influences. Because of the external influences, we want to take modern medicine. Because of we are moving to modern medicine, now we are not ready to, or our body is not digesting with the traditional medicines. So that will be the one of the core issues of tribal communities. Then we can say another issue is called as a lack of leadership. So we having a department, we having the ministers, we having the representatives of MLA, MP, and we having administrators, but they are not raising their voice for the benefit of their communities, especially tribal communities. We won't be found any, especially I'm saying in case of the Kerala, we won't found a good leader can raise his or her voice for the upliftment of tribal communities. That is another issues. And next issues, or problems of tribe, we can say wild animal attack, and they're destroying the crops of the tribes. I was point out there, the tribes may stay in tribal hamlets. Sorry, tribes are staying forest area or near to forest. So there is a high chances are there the wild animal attacks. Okay, so a number of cases has reported wild animal attacks, and they destroyed the crops of the tribes. The next is, displacement with inadequate considerations. The government has implemented, we can say mainly, they're constructing dam, or they are using that area as mining places. Because of this development activities, most affected peoples are tribe. But the government as well as the department hardly to take fair decision for effectively rehabilitation of tribal communities. That is another issues to be looked in details. And next one we can say inadequate infrastructure facilities, and last one, no social justice. So these are the 21 issues faced by, or problems faced by tribes in the state of Kerala. For resolving this issue, I'm suggesting some of the points. I hope that points will be helpful for improvement of scheduled tribes' lives. One is called as the formal educations. Authority has to give a formal educations. Then you people can ask me, there are various schemes implemented by states as well as the government for promoting education. Why you are saying the education is required for the promotions of the tribes? So here I was point outing specific points. You know, that formal educations to be skill oriented. They should assess the skill of individual on the basis of skill assessment. They could provide skill oriented education systems. So when they're giving skill oriented education, that will be in a residential mode. That will be in a residential mode. That time also you can ask me, Nitish, the government has provided model residential schools. But one of the limitation of that model residential school, you know, that is restricted up to +2. So what is my suggestion for the improvement of education in tribal community? They could provide a residential school up to master level, and that to be skill oriented, and the teachers to be young and energetics with mainly from tribal communities. If it is tribal community, well and good. Why? Because they may have more attached with their people, especially young and energetic, knowledgeable people. I'm just leave that old generation. They may have fear to express their feeling to the authority for the development of their people. But the present generation gradually changes, and they can have the capacity to change this particular classes. So that's the reason formal education to be skill oriented, residential up to master degree, and the teachers from tribal community means well and good. Second, the government has to provide land. Main issues of any human being, because they don't have the permanent assets, we can say as a fixed assets. So when they lack the fixed assets, the problems will be issues. And 80% of tribes, they are working in informal, or we can say as an unorganized sectors. Hence, if they want to improve their style of life and the standard of living, they need a land. So in that land, they can be have agriculture and allied activities for their livelihood. Then another important suggestions I'm giving: prohibition of alcoholic products in and around tribal hamlets. So the government should take an effort for the prohibition of alcoholic items.
Yes, sir. You may conclude, sir. Sir, we are just fixing the time, sir. Please.
Okay, within 10 minutes I may complete. So legal, and next items or next points or suggestion I can say: legal action against tribal attackers. Then next point, processing and distribution of tribal products. The government has to take an effort for the process, for the establishment of processing unit, and that will be helpful to get fair price. Then I am suggesting there would be a coordination with the local government, tribal department, Ministry of Social Justice, police department, as well as forest department. And another important points I'm mentioning here, the government has to give free to do the real estate activities. You know, especially in the Wayanad district, when a tribe, I mean, before selling the land of tribe, they should get permission from the concerned authorities. So, because of that restriction imposed by the government, the most of the tribal entrepreneurs, they are not involving in real estate, at least buying and selling the land. Then promoting traditional knowledge, especially, and protecting traditional medicines. That is another area. And job reservation to aided institution as well as the private institutions. Now, the aided institution, the government is not giving any reservations. We can say aided colleges, aided schools, they are not getting any reservations, so that will be considered. Seminar. And you know, development of infrastructure facilities, effective implementation of rehabilitation schemes. There should be strong measures to be taken from the attack of wild animals. And you know, we should appoint a young and energetic tribe for the development of tribals. We have a number of institutions focusing for the development of tribes or with intent to have the development of tribes. In that institution, top positions to be held by the young and energetic tribe means we can found there is a effective use of that particular fund for the benefit of tribe. And at last, 18th suggestions I'm giving for the upliftment of tribes in our country, that is nothing but right scheme to the right person at the right time. The concerned person has to take an effort to find what is the right scheme and who is the right person and what is the right time to distribute that fund. If it is happened, we can found there is a standard of living of our tribal communities will get improved and they may be free from various obstacles. So let me conclude my presentation. Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Government of India introduced various schemes for the development and promotion of tribes in our country. But when come to the implementation, that is not properly practicing by the concerned authorities. Because of they are not properly implemented, that has badly affected for the practice of tribal community, the state of Kerala, as well as the state of country. So we can have a dream for the development of tribal communities. For that purpose, what the concerned authority has to do, or specifically I can say, right schemes to be implemented to the right person at a right time. Okay, thank you. let me express my sincere gratitude to the organizing committee of this webinar, and I'm so happy to share my views with this open platform.
Okay.
And let me express my sincere gratitude to the host institutions, especially IIT Delhi and IIT Palakkad. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Nitish, thank you very much for giving a brief, broader introduction to the state of affairs of tribal development in Kerala. And I hope that some of the viewers will be putting up some questions in the final stage of discussions, and you will be able to cover some of the things. Thank you very much. Now, our next speaker is Dr. Narayanan MS. He is now a faculty with the University of Calicut, the Department of Tribal Studies, based in Wayanad, working in the Faculty of English. He has done work on PhD from the EFLO University Hyderabad on English and Cultural Studies with respect to the state festival of Onam, Kerala. And for his MPhil, he has done a good work which is related to the topic now. One of the classic example of struggle by tribe people in Wayanad, Muttanga, struggle by tribe on Muttanga. It is called Muttanga. That is a very famous struggle. He has done extensive work on that one for his MPhil dissertation. And he has done a variety of, we can say, aspects of, he has studied different aspects of tribal cultural studies with respect to folklore and all other culture related. I do hope that he will be stressing his point of the topic of indigenous culture versus the external influences based on his experience in Kerala, especially in Wayanad. Dr. Narayanan.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm audible, right?
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Venugopal, sir. Unnat Abhiyan, IIT Delhi, National Coordinating Institute, IIT Palakkad for the webinar series. Give me a space to talk about the understanding of various modes of tribal development, protecting their indigenous culture from external influences. Thank you. So I am not taking that much time because Nidish did that much extensive presentation, and there are many points I would like to repeat. So I won't take that much time, maybe maximum 10 to 15 minutes. So the title.
Switch on your video, sir, please.
Okay. So my title, paper title, the Conserving the Tribal Culture and Exclusion of the Tribes from the Development Process. So here basically I am looking at what are the tribal culture in general, not in the, especially in Kerala itself, and what are the policy making, what is the role of tribes in the making of the policy level. So I'll just read my paper. This paper aims to explore the understanding of tribal culture and how the state developmental policies exclude the tribes in the process of policy making. I also put some queries about the preservation of the tribal culture in India as well as in Kerala. First section of this paper would analyze some ideas about culture and how it connects the life of the community. Also tries to connect tribal culture as part of the popular culture. Popular culture is one of the elements of the culture studies. In the sense when the culture is liked by the people, and second part would like to look at the welfare mechanism of the tribal communities in Kerala. I will look at details, but Nidish did a well work on that, so I'm skipping that part, the second part of my paper. So around 35 different Adivasi communities live in different parts of Kerala. Most of them are daily wage laborers. Each community have their own culture and tradition. Tribal community culture in India has a significant contribution to the cultural heritage of the country, but it did not consider as the mainstream cultures of India, and it entertained as a separate entity. One tribe is different from others, other tribe in the sense of their rituals, tradition, language, and cultural practices. But it has some common features like lifestyle of the community. They stay together. I'll just go for the definition of the tribes. The tribes in India are known in different names, such as Adivasis, Aboriginals, Indigenous people, etc. Mostly Indian society use the term Adivasi than the tribe. The common definition of the tribe is that this is a social group who share a common language and culture. In India, the term tribe is administrative category. In the post-independence period, the administration classified the Aboriginal community as scheduled tribes for administrative purposes. The early anthropologists, like colonial anthropologists, used to define the concept tribe from a comparative frame of perspective, like they're comparing the features of the Adivasis to the Westerners, especially the Negroes. They usually also use the racial theories to understand the Adivasis. The comparative frame emerged was based on the comparison between the West and the East. According to L.P. Vidyarthi, an anthropologist, argues that the studies of Adivasis in India started with the formation of Asiatic Society of Bengal by the British in 1774, and the post-independence period it was continued by the Anthropological Survey of India under the Government of India. The early anthropologists used the different names to refer the Adivasis of India. They used the terms like Vanavasi, Arthujadi, Vanavargangal, Forest Dwellers Community, criminal tribes, etc. The tribes in India are popularly known as Adivasis, which is the most appropriate term for defining them. So David Hardiman, one of the anthropologists, defines that Adivasi as a combination of the word Adi and Vasi. He also says that tribe is an administrative term and it does not include Adivasi in its purview. Adi means beginning or earliest times and Vasi means resident of. The idea is that Adivasis are original inhabitants of India. One problem with the English term tribe is that it has no historical equivalent in Indian languages. In some Indian languages, it's known as equivalent to the word jadi and all. So come to the tribal culture is part of their rituals and traditions, and it has the distinctive features like each tribal community has their own cultures and it is one different from one to another. The contemporary period, many of the tribal community lost their traditional practices due to the several issues such as development projects, external affairs, etc. Here, the question of conservation or preservation of tribal culture is important. Adivasi culture can relate with their art and life cycle. So that we can say that Adivasi culture is a way of life, which is the similar idea of the term culture proposed by the culture theory intellectuals like Raymond Williams and Murphy. So contemporary Indian society used the tribal culture to establish that it's a part of the Indian culture and heritage through the performance of some special occasions like Republic Day parade or some other state inaugural ceremonies. In that sense, we can put forward that tribal culture has also some elements of the idea that the popular culture. The popular culture is a broad area of study dealing with the practice and performance of everyday life, and the forms of popular culture transit from one society to another. In general, popular culture manifests with ideas, perspectives, attitudes, and images within the mainstream domain of any culture. Popular culture is also defined in terms of the resistance to dominant ideological forms. It is known as the culture of subordinated. It traces the domination of the subordination, where are the central to the social system and experiences. I took this from the John Fiskey's book, Understanding the Popular Culture. Is that struggle between the dominant and subordinate group in the society. In one of the sides where the struggle against the culture of the power and dominance is fought for. Stuart Hall, one of the cultural theoreticians, asserted that in his book, Understanding Notes on Deconstructing the Popular, he is saying that popular culture that lies outside the field of the force of relations of the cultural power and domination, and it underestimates the power of the cultural implantation. Here, we can connect that tribal culture into the popular culture. Today, most of the tribal culture are under form of resistance or struggle for the existence of survival. That whole tribal society is going through the modernization process that it brought rapid transformation in their social cultural life. The limited access of the natural resources is one of is so the limited resources is uh, one of the broad rapid transformation in social cultural life. The limited access of the natural resources is one of the reasons for the alienation of the tribal culture in India or Kerala. Here, we have to incorporate the effects of development policies in the tribal regions worked as an external forces. The public performance of the tribal art forms, also we can see that is a claiming a public space and use the site to perform the cultural value of the community. As mentioned earlier, popular culture is part of the resistance to the dominant culture. Tribal culture also read in that sense. Nowadays, many of the tribal cultural practices are resisting against the dominant culture. For example, in the literary field, there are many Adivasis who have started writing about themselves. These tribal studies by the Adivasis have been changing earlier notions of tribes, culture, and tradition which created by the non-tribal writers. For example, recently in Kerala, a group of writers come up with a book called Gotra Kavidakal, the tribal poetry, reflects the tribal culture and life. This book is reconstructing the idea of tribal life. This book is completely done by the Adivasis, in the sense, except from the publication, the cover design and editing and all the through process is completely done by the Adivasis. So another example is the use of tribal songs in the films or the movies. These are the some ways of conservation of the tribal culture. Music bands or troops or performance group is also part of the starting the new brands, new cultural groups is a kind of preservation of the tribal culture. So external affairs causes the erosion of the tribal cultures in India. It develops the fascination towards the modern culture and non-tribal culture. One of the external factors is the migration towards the tribal region and the development projects in the tribal region. So migration causes the introduction of the new goods in the tribal area that causes the alienation of the access of the tribal traditional goods. So same as the development projects, this is starting from the tribal regions, causes the alienation of the community. So migration introduces the new cultural products among the tribes like soap, dress, alcohol, and it causes the erosion of the ethnic products. So these can be seen in their cultural performances and all. So there are many songs and performances talking about the introduction of the new goods among them. So in the course of development activities causes the alienation of the tribal lands and they're forced to move from their hamlets. This affected the traditional cultural practices of the community because the land they live is attached to the memory of their ancestors and they do not have many rituals there. So the conservation of tribal culture is possible through some policy makings, which should be within the consent of the tribes. The government has introduced many land and forest policies for the development of the Adivasis. This policy makes the Adivasi daily wage laborers and alienated them from their traditional life. Most of the Adivasis share their habitats with the neighboring communities. The state and central governments formulated various policies within the aim of uplifting Adivasis. Many of these policies were counterproductive in the socio-economic development of Adivasis in Kerala. The tribal policies, especially those pertaining to forests and lands, failed to address the issue of the Adivasis in the state, and this situation resulted in further deepening the crisis. Many of the state policies alienated Adivasis from their day-to-day life and made them primitive again. The tribal development policies ignore the Adivasi's identity. The Adivasi movement that emerged during the last decade were the response to the development policies, and these movements raise in the question of Adivasi autonomy. So I'll come to the conclusion, which is almost I also make some suggestions to protect the conserve the Adivasi culture, which is almost similar to the what the Nidish made. So one is about the traditional knowledge. So there should be a preservation mechanism or the protection of the tribal knowledge systems such as the medicinal healing, literature, art, painting should be preserved, that we can preserve the tribal ethnic, like starting the tribal art gallery or tribal cultural forum like that. It should protect the tribal culture. And another thing is to make it in the part of the academic curriculum to the state or central educational policies. It's a kind of institutionalization, like Nidish already pointed out. There is no higher education for the residential higher education for the tribes in Kerala, but there is one that which I am working that's the Institute of Tribal Studies and Research. We have to more like that kind of education institution, and include the tribal culture and tribal literature, tribal art in the educational curriculum in the syllabus. That could be given, making more preservation or making widening to the tribal knowledge. And another thing is that what is I think important one is the community's participation in the decision making the development projects. When the state or central making the development projects, there should be 1/3 of the tribal people are there, and they have to learn from the community what the community needs, and the development projects has to be designed according to that. So another things, the one is that documentation of the tribal art forms and language. There be all communities have different kind of language, different kinds of, especially the recently work is going on that making the tribal dictionary by the Ramachandran, the person called Ramachandran. He started the collecting the dictionary. It is going to soon published very soon. So that kind of work we have to be encouraged. And above all this, above all the development projects, the social mentality has to be changed towards the tribal communities. Now, even today, as the 21st century, the people thinks that tribes are something has to be studied or something has to be exhibited, or it is not part of the mainstream community. So the social mentality of the people has to be changed towards the tribal community. They have to stop the discriminative practices, and it should be very legally, it has to be taken. This is all my suggestion for the presentation. I hope I can take any discussion or queries. Actually, I don't have the answers, but we can share some thoughts about this. And thank you all. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Narayanan, for giving a wider but brief aspects of the tribal situation, especially with reference to his own area, the Wayanad area. Probably some of the, now I think it is open for some type of question answer session, both speakers. So we are requesting the viewers, some of the viewers, if they have got any specific questions addressed to any of the speakers, either they can put in the chat box, or if the organizers agree, they can request and ask the question directly to the speaker also.
Yes, thank you, sir. So we have one question from Dr. Nidhis. Sir, many tribal communities are involved in artisan works. How can we promote their product for generating more livelihood opportunities? Dr. Nidhis, please.
Hello?
Sir.
Yeah. You know, one of the suggestions I was point out there would
This is
be a
question, sir.
cordial relationship.
Please.
Can you hear us?
Sir.
Okay. So one of the suggestions I was pointed out there, there is a cordial relationship to be exist with various government institutions and multinational companies. So why I made this suggestion, one of the main issues of tribal products, the marketing problems, the price as well as the distributions. So when a supporting agency like MNC had collaborated with the government institution, they can be easily market the product of tribes. So they will be getting the fair price on that product. But now we hardly to find, especially in Kerala, any of the MNC have directly involved for transferring or distribution of tribal or Adivasi products. So that's the points I can be suggest to the August gathering or August audience for the promotion of for promotion and distributions of tribal products.
I hope it is okay for the speaker.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
If any
So next question,
other questions?
yes. Next question is just what are the hurdles to publish research papers in the state university in local tribal languages? Sir, please.
Maybe Dr. Narayanan can answer. So you're working on English and languages and all these
Okay,
ones.
sure. Uh, the hurdles, I think, maybe local tribal language or the local language. I didn't get that. So, can you
Tribal
make it clear?
tribal languages.
See, there is a problem with that. There is no that kind of script for the tribal language, right? They are writing in their local region language. So, actually, that process is started now. The book which I mentioned in my presentation, the Gotra Kavidagal, is actually completed by in the tribal languages. There are many more than 10 tribal languages are there. And that and now it's going to be translated in English also. So this is the process. I think the hurdles is almost completed. It's one of this. It's another part of the curriculum. That's one hurdle. I think it's coming soon. Right?
So, Dr. Narayanan, your comment and even the traditional language of the tribes are not included in the, maybe it is not known much, you are telling, and there is efforts going on from the local level, from the tribal people groups on this one.
Yes.
I think there are some institutions like the Center for Endangered Languages in of the languages based in Karivattam, Kerala University. I don't know whether you are aware. I think you might have.
Yeah. I have.
They're also doing.
I heard about that.
Somebody. Yeah, and somebody that Dr. Lijisha working on the language of the Cholanaikans. I think some stray, but as you're telling, maybe the organized sector, institutional basis is not there as such.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe there's a need for government, the Department of Tribal Affairs, linking with the Department of Education. There's a need. Okay, at least you are started. I think you're also part of the movement for this Gotra Kavitagal, etc. Maybe it will catch up, etc.
Yeah, sure. We hope that.
But do you think that there is another one? Okay, since the language spoken in the local people are Malayalam locally, because to be part of the mainstream, there is a dichotomy. You need to be separated into endangered status, or to be in the mainstream. That type of because during the work on tribal studies in Kani as well as the Kadar, we found that when there is a extreme dichotomy. One is to keep the, as you mentioned, keeping your tribes as an exhibit in the museum or pieces, etc., and to make them endangered status. But it can be conserved. I mean, endangered, identifying the importance of this one as the endangered status and working on that one, or coming back to the mainstream and losing the identity. This dichotomy is always affecting people like us or observers. Maybe, Narayana, do you have any observation this type of dichotomy from the local stakeholder, primary stakeholder being the tribal person from your side? Do you have any observation on this dichotomy?
No, I don't that much, but I'm thinking that as you said that this both have to be very clear when we are starting with. I said it in a preservation manner when we are talking about the preservation or conservation of the language. We have to be protect the tribal language in through their own documentation like art and the songs and all that. So when we have to the other process of the museumization, we should also should be there preserve kind of things. So that then it becomes part of the mainstream. That's what I am thinking. So I think it's a dichotomy. It's like that. It should be take time to be part of the mainstream. That's things. There are a lot of studies are going on the tribal languages, especially the linguistics way and all this. But there is not that much for the preserving them. That's what as you already mentioned that from the state part, state or central part. How can we preserve this kind of language? That's a thing. Because when we are talking about the external influence, languages are one of the most thing which is losing because of external interaction for the communities, right? Even the new generation people, like the younger kids, they even don't know their set language. So that's the problem the community faces now. So am I making sense?
Okay, thanks. Is there any other interventions and questions to any of the speakers?
Sir, one question from Dr. Venugopal, sir. Sir, just brief that what museum are doing to preserve the tribal, equipment, especially agricultural equipments, music systems. Many they are losing, and culture, language. Is there any role to museum to preserve these things?
Yeah, I will answer because I was also associated with the first museum in Asia.
Sir, please.
The Indian Museum Calcutta during its 200 years anniversary. By certain, I was the director, so I could go into in fact, Anthropology Service India started as an organization from the collection of anthropology from the Indian Museum only. The anthropology collection of Indian Museum was converted and started the base of Anthropology Survey of India. So we can say that museums are one of the custodians of our past heritage. Of course, initially the colonial hangover, interpreting the keeping the exhibit as such in the museums was the earlier. That is not only here in India, outside also. But over years, after we got independence, there are two major points which help to decolonize this zone. One is democracy and education, popular education. So a tribe is just like all other people, etc. So showing tribes as an exhibit pieces in the museum is a bond. So education aspects come all over India, not only in that one. Another is recent phenomena is the recognition that freedom fighters, there is a movement in India called freedom fighters movement, tribal freedom fighters movement. And in fact, 10 states have been selected and Kerala is one of the states selected to depict the tribal freedom fighter movement aspect of tribes through museum angle, because society agrees that museums are one of the social institutions for education, formal and education. Other than our education, normal formal education, just like colleges, universities, museums are one of the major social. So what I'm telling earlier in the Asiatic society scene or the British period or when Indian Museum was started in the so during the 200th anniversary, I will tell you too. Earlier it was based on the taxonomy character of the tribes. But in the final stage, during the 200 years anniversary, when we were chapter in the Indian Museum, we changed the theme in Indian Museum into evolutionary scale, thematic based. That itself shows the museum movement has come over. Then when I was with the National Museum of Natural History, Delhi, and we have started centers in Mysore, Bhopal, Bhubaneswar, wherever possible, showing the natural heritage of the area, regional, South India and Mysore, or Shodiga tribes, we are trying to incorporate the activities of the local tribes, in Bega tribes in Bhopal, in majority of the activities, and even in Mysore, Kani tribes, that's a rare example which is relevant to the here. That I will tell you, because Kani tribes, the knowledge system, I think both speakers will be agreeing that one. The knowledge related to medicinal property, that is the traditional knowledge system they have highlighted. But the one thing which people in policy or anywhere are not aware, that one convention biodiversity. It is based, one of the international protocol, Nagoya protocol and access and benefit sharing is based on the knowledge system of medicinal knowledge system of the Kani tribes, which was converted into a drug, Jivani, and that access and benefit sharing. So these are world recognized, and these are shown. I'm sure that when the National Museum naturally is the first one to show in Delhi the importance of this. We can say that what is the relationship of convention biodiversity with India, with respect to Kerala, with respect to Kani tribes. This has been shown in different parts. But until in that, the museum is a major museum, and another major museum movement in India, the IGRMS, Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Manasavatsarala, is specifically involved in anthropology aspects. Basically, they work on cultural aspects, and there is a South India office in Mysore. So what I'm suggesting, all this museum as an institutional base has taken the educational aspects of decolonization of the tribes. And in fact, in IGRMS Bhopal and other Mysore, the local tribe people have been involved as co-curators even. So what I'm telling that, because I am being a museum person involved in these activities, and now also in the Kirtad for information, there is an institution, I think speakers will be aware, Kirtad based in Calicut, they're taking care of this one. And initial idea of a museum for the freedom fighters, tribal freedom fighters, was located in Calicut. I think you agree that one, that is the approved one. But during this sojourn in which myself and the new government in Kerala is involved, the minister, especially the minister related to the tribal affairs, very particular that this must be shifted not in Calicut to Wayanad, where there is a contest, tribal population is there. The museum meant for a tribe, for the people, of the people, by the people, supposed to be approved by the government of Kerala and the central government with around more than 10 crores. Now, around 20 acres has been very specifically, they changed the road and everything. The present government is purposefully changed, that it must be located in the context where tribes are dominant. So that is a positive feature from the bureaucratic approach, at least. And from, we can say, I also stood the point that it must be shifted out of this one. And majority of the people working with the IGRMS national level people also suggested. But some way, earlier stage, it is bureaucratic approval. Now it has been shifted. And there's a, what I'm telling, there's a strong positive change in and the policy making level for this one, in which I'm very much aware of that one. And hopefully the speakers also will be linked with the Kirtads, because in India, this is like a huge money for this one. The nodal agencies, Kirtads, whatever limitation they have got, will be, with the help of the local stakeholders, will be able to be removed. That is the answer for your question, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. So kindly you process webinar conclude remarks, sir, please.
Okay. Okay. As a moderator, now I will be. I have summarized some of the things. We have found that majority of the one thing which came out of this one, even though outside Kerala, the social index and index of education, social literacy, women education, all this very high. But the speaker, especially the speaker one, has very strongly pointed out that one. Even though that is high, the status, realistic status of situation of the tribal people are not up to standard, even compared to any other states. You can say it's again extreme state. One way, the Kerala development index is equal to the international standard, Another local is that contextual. Local one is that one. It is not up to standard because the stakeholders, the speaker themselves are telling that one, and we know that one. And they also suggested, based on the historical thing, the Kerala context that higher is basically on the private sector involvement. They already mentioned that one. The private sector involvement in education, increasing number of literacy, everything is private oriented. The government does not have much control on that one. So it is affecting. There is no job guarantee in the type of higher education institutions. Yeah, they mentioned that concession rates are limited to up to 12th class. When they pass out, they are not allowed to enter the aided educational colleges and school, etc. So there is a dichotomy on that one, which is an eye-opener for people like me. So that he has very good explained. And one thing he has pointed out is that these are external features. He has mentioned that there are external features of the policy makers, all this affecting the local development of the local community. But another thing he has already pointed out, there's an internal feature also, that is the intercaste marriages among the tribal people is affecting their own, I can say whether you call it a purity of the tribal culture is being affected, and that is affecting even the job chances reserved for tribal people. That again is an eye opener. These two things was an eye opener to me as a person observing this type of traditional knowledge of the tribe people, especially Kani tribes and Kadar community. I have been working and helping out some people, etc. Now, in the second speaker has very strongly come out with a background of let's say interpretation, let's say local stakeholders interpretation, basically of the tribes by the non-tribes is not up to standard. Historically, he mentioned that one, the role of Asiatic society and the museum like the Indian Museum early stage. He has not specifically named Indian Museum, but I can know because working there, etc. So that is a historical thing, etc. And he has linked to the popular culture equivalent to the tribal culture and popular culture and the dominant, subordinate type of culture, etc. And all these type of etc. So, and here both of them have suggested that there must be a policy level change so that the benefits supposed to be given to tribe people must be access to them in a real sense, etc. And the lack of coordination, I think both speakers, lack of coordination among the tribe people, among the forest department people, education department, police department, there are umpteen number of examples they quoted. Their own example, why not? They mentioned about this one, especially Mutanga, he has just mentioned hindered. All this lack of coordination among the people, and during the flood situation, the problems of tribe students and he himself, people suffered of transportation, etc., because of lack of this collaboration, lack of coordination among this type of things. And so overall, it is basically eye opener for this one, and they have suggested in what I have pointed out here is that one, there must be effort from the policy level to be supported by the local level. He has already quoted the example of language, the tribal dialects, or you can say languages. We don't have much literature or written material on that type of thing, etc., or script. And there are efforts going on. He has mentioned Gotra Kavidagal by the people, of the people, and for the people type of thing. That type of effects. If it is linked, and his own working speaker is working in a tribal research institution of the University of Calicut. So academically, some of the people like him who has got degrees, etc., has got advantage, but majority of people are not even getting that type of thing. But there are efforts. So these efforts by the local, we could say internal people, the tribal people, as well as the external, the policy maker, the environment, etc., needs to be enhanced so that there is an equal access and justice to that one. These are the points I could write from the observations or one I could hear. So I conclude myself from this one. It's an eye opener. And one more thing is I suggested as an observer is that we need, because these speakers are academicians. So in future, if the IIT Delhi organize this one, this can be enhanced by having at least a few people who may not be educated, we call a PhD on that, but the actual people who are fighting for the cause of that one. If you can add academically trained tribe people along with the non-academicianly or other well qualified people or some of the artists type of things. And if they can bring their own language, some of the people who can talk maybe 1 or 2 minutes on their language, and this expert can translate. That will be highly useful for this in future. What I'm suggesting from the future, that will be highly useful. With this one, I will conclude my observations, summing up. And now back to the organizers, please.
Thank you, Dr. Venugopal. Your suggestion is very important for us. We generally call the grassroots people on webinar or where people they present themselves. So next time we will just take care of these things. Thank you so much for your suggestions. Now, I would like to request IIT Palakkad UBA representative to give vote of thanks to speakers and moderator and our team.
Good morning, everyone. It has been such an honor to be a part of this wonderful discussion. On behalf of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan National Coordinating Institute, IIT Delhi, Institute IIT Palakkad, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Dr. B. Venugopal, Dr. Nitish, and Dr. Narayan. Thank you. Sincere thanks to NCI IIT Delhi team for organizing this webinar. Last but not the least, thanks to all the participants. We strongly believe this webinar added some values and insight into the ongoing activities undertaken by the participating higher education institutions. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. So thank you once again to everyone, and we will meet soon to discuss the outcomes of this webinar with all the participants. This is 14th episode. So now when we will complete the session, we will meet virtually or with physically. So we will inform you by phone or mail. So be ready with your more research papers to give your suggestions for future planning. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you.